Hello to all our friends and family from the Financial Advisory Group. We hope you're all enjoying a great spring. And even though the weather is a little bit of a roller coaster, a little bit like the markets, we hope you're enjoying these days and just getting to be outside as much as possible as the days get longer. And a thank you to all of you. It's been a little bit over 3 years since we started these videos. One of the, call it good or bad, that's come out of COVID is this tradition we've started of trying to send out a video every month or two to give you an update on our thoughts or maybe some planning ideas. So thank you for sticking with us and thank you for watching the videos. We do plan, as we talked last time, to continue to do them and probably add a couple different characters sometime throughout this year, so you're not just stuck with me. But thank you as always for sticking with us and the trust and confidence you continue to place in us. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts here at the Financial Advisory Group. Well, last time we spoke via video, the news of the day was the banking crisis. It was pretty fresh. It was something we were all worried about. And look back a month ago, and now no one's almost talking about it anymore. It's sort of how it goes these days, right? It's let's worry about something, act like it's going to change the world completely, and then when it doesn't, move on to the next thing to worry about. There's a theme we have to this video today, and that sort of goes with it. So looking at the bank side of things, as we spoke a month ago, things are okay. The Federal Reserve and our government stepped up. Whether we can agree or disagree with what they did, that's a different topic, but they stepped up and secured the banking system to make us all feel comfortable. And to have an economy run smoothly, the first thing you need is a stable financial system. And I think that was crucial, the fact that they did that and acted as quickly as they did back in March. So kudos to them. And here we are towards the end of April. Could there be other ripple effects? Sure. But it looks like the banking situation is for the most part behind us from a worry standpoint. What's surprising to most people, and we talked about this a couple of videos ago, is the healing process for the markets has actually continued. If you look, and most people wouldn't guess this, we quiz clients right now. If we said, if you look back the last 6 or 7 months, do you think markets have been okay? And the typical answer is, they've been okay, or they've come up a little bit. What's surprising is if you actually dig under the hood and be careful, if we ask you a question, we usually know the answer and it comes in our favor. But if you look under the hood over the last 7 months or so, the market, whether we look at the S&P 500 or the Dow, are up somewhere between 13 and 16%. Right? We mentioned that term healing process a couple of videos ago, that we saw that starting to emerge. And I think that's important, right? And it's important to learn that we keep chasing perfect, but what we're doing is we're missing out on good and great, right? And I think there's a country song in there somewhere. I still haven't figured out the lyrics, but I think we're missing out on good and great because all we want to do is chase perfect. We want to wait till things are perfect, and then we think things will be okay. But as you can see in these last 6 or 7 months, things still aren't perfect. There's issues out there, right? Think about it from this perspective: is you've had inflation to worry about over this time period. You've had the election to worry about over this time period. You've had the Federal Reserve raising rates over this time period. You've had recession fears come and go. Is there a recession? Is there not a recession? Is it a hard landing? Is it a soft landing? And don't forget those good old egg prices we were worried about in December. Add bank failures to that, add the newest concerns with China, and we'll get to the newer ones in a little bit. But again, looking backwards, the healing, it's been a nice healing process we've had for the last 6 or 7 months. What typically happens after that is the market tends to take a little pause, right? So I think in our view, we've had a great 6 or 7 month run. We're probably due for a little pause or blip right now, and that's okay. Again, we'll get to that in a little bit. But looking backwards, I think the important thing to remember is the healing process has begun, and that things are starting to, the market looks a lot better than it did 7 months ago. That doesn't mean it's going to go up for the next 6 or 7 months, but at least we've come a long way. To go along with that theme of the market doesn't wait for perfect, if you look at inflation, something we talk about still every day, it's not perfect yet. Inflation's still too high, but it's the words we used last year were that things are getting less worse, right? It's a weird terminology to use, but I think that trend continues. And if you look back to June of last year, in June, the inflation print hit over 9%, right? In my lifetime, the highest we've ever seen it. I guess when I was in the 70s and 80s when I was alive, I don't really remember those times, but in my remembering lifetime, the highest it's ever been by far. Every single inflation reading since June has been lower. That's 9 consecutive falling inflation readings. That's what the market wants to see, right? It's not perfect yet, but it's less worse. So as things get less worse, the market begins to heal. Again, it goes with this theme is if we wait for things to be perfect, it's too late. So of course, things aren't as great as we want them to be, but we do see signs of this continuing theme that things are getting less worse as we look around. And in chart form or in picture form, is sometimes I like charts better. Here you can see that inflation started going up post-COVID. You had it peak in about mid-2022, and you have it heading back down recently over the last couple months, which is the trend that we want to see, right? We don't necessarily need to see it get back down here for the market to do okay. We just need the trend to remain okay. So again, I think it goes with our theme of we don't want to miss out on things being good because we are chasing perfect. Yes, prices are still high on things like services. If you try to go out to eat, prices are still high. If you're trying to fly or travel, prices are still high. But at least some other places like lumber, like gas, and other spots of the economy, and eggs, they're starting to see some of those prices come back down. So, I think when we look at this and we talked about it, right, all these different things that we're waiting for, right, we're always waiting for things to get perfect. When we look back over the last 30 years, boy, have there been a number of reasons to sell and get out of the market. The market has tackled a lot. Yet if you look at the market over this 30-year time period, it has averaged a rate of return of almost 10% per year over the last 30 years. And look at all the stuff it's been through. Sometimes we forget, right? We forget things like Lehman Brothers went bankrupt in the middle of 2008. We forget that in March of 2009, the market had one of its worst quarter ever in the first quarter of 2009. Back to one thing we'll talk about in a minute, the newest worry is the debt ceiling debate, right? Debt ceiling debate tied with recession. Very similar things were happening in 2011. And I think we could see some similarities to what we see in markets going forward and would pair with our thoughts that there's always stuff to worry about. But all we need is to continue to focus on owning good companies and make good decisions. So let's take this example here, right? Let's worry about the debt ceiling. Sure, that's coming up this year. I think we're all getting used to it to being a topic in our media. It's not something new. It's been something that's been addressed for 100 years by our Congress and will continue to be addressed for the next 100 years. But what if we take this as an example? We do believe, and we mentioned it before, that we've had such a good run in this market for the last 7 months. We're probably due the market to hit a little bit of a blip here, right? When you have a good 7-month run, the market tends to take a break, right? So if we analyze a little deeper and said, what if we go back to April of 2011? At that point, our rating as a government actually got lowered for how trustworthy we are to borrow money because of the debt ceiling debate and the fiscal cliff, if you remember those sayings from 2011. If we dig a little deeper, this is what happened from April of 2011 over the next 5 years. And I think this chart summarizes so well our view today, right? Short term, there's reasons to be worried, right? There's possible of a recession coming the next 6 months. There's a possibility that the job market's going to get not as good as it is right now, that you're starting to see a little bit of cracks in the job market. You're starting to see signs that the debt ceiling could end up being an issue. There's little signs that things could start popping up here, so we could see a little bit of a breather. So if you go back to April of 2011, what did you see? Short term, the market took a little bump, right? You saw the market take a hit initially during the debt ceiling debates, but we can't worry about short term. That's why we have the buckets, right? We talked last time about the bucket strategy. We have the bucket set aside so that if the market does fall like it did in 2011, we have a bucket to pull from. What we're more focused on is what if the next 5 years are similar to the 5 years of the last debt ceiling crisis in 2011? From April of 2011 till April of 2016, over that 5-year period, the market averaged a rate of return of 14 to 15%. Think about that. So our view is short term, sure, we may duplicate what we saw from the debt ceiling of 2011. There is some volatility that may be coming. That's why we have the bucket set aside. But we do think still that when we look out over the next 2, 3, 5 years, that we would be very happy if someone sat down and said to us, hey, would you be happy 5 years from now if the markets were up about 50% and you averaged a return of 14%? Of course, we're not saying that's what's going to happen, but we're saying the market tends to rhyme, not necessarily repeat exactly. And we think something like this is what we could see coming ahead. So we don't want to focus on the short term and get worried about this. Again, we don't want to focus on perfect and miss out on good or great over the long term. So as we look through it, and a couple other slides here, I think this is important with how long term we can put good examples of how markets are set to do okay. This chart here, it's a little bit complicated, but tells you if the bar chart up here is high, it means the average investor has more in the stock market. If the bar chart down here is low, it means the average investor has more in the bond market. So when clients or investors are scared, what do? They run to the bond market. And as we've talked before, average investors don't do very well with timing. March of 2009 is actually when the stock market bottomed, yet that was the time in history that the most people were overweight bonds to equities in history. The worst time, because you actually wanted to be overweight stocks at that point, right? Because the market actually went on a phenomenal run from 2009 until 2013, 2014. The next time that happened was in 2020 during COVID. Remember the run the market had post-COVID, right? Look at where we are today, that people are more bearish today than they've been in a long time. So we get it short term, we understand that. But every time that the market or the average investor has been this bearish, the next 3 to 5 years tend to be very good. Not the next 3 to 5 months, but the next 3 to 5 years. And that's what we continue to focus on here. So stick with us. I think, again, we could have a bumpy couple months ahead, but that's okay. Markets don't just go straight up. The healing process isn't perfect. That we may hit a couple bumps, but that's okay because long term, we really think we're set up to do well. And last, as you see, the title of our slide is we're all searching for this magic certainty button. I can't find it. If you find it, let me know. I think we all just want this perfect environment, right? Where we want inflation to be super low and we want the market to be super high, and we want the Fed to not be raising rates and to not have the world's at peace and everyone's harmonizing and holding hands. We're not going to get there. So the problem is if we keep chasing perfect, we're going to miss out on good and great. And our job here is good and great's okay. We know that perfect may never come. So let's not miss out on good and great in the meantime. And like I said, I think somewhere there's a country song I could write in here. I'll call my buddy Blake Shelton and see if we can get some connection going. So as we're saying here again, let's not get caught up searching for that magic certainty button. If you find it, let me know. You probably make a lot of money selling it. But other than that, enjoy the summer. Right? We're here for you if questions, concerns come up. We'll have another video out in another month or two. We look forward to seeing everybody over the summer. We're glad we had so many people turn out to our Shredded event recently, and we'll try to do a couple more educational type events throughout the summer. But in the meantime, let us worry about this stuff. Enjoy what's coming, travel, spend time with family, and enjoy the summer weather and the extra daylight. Thank you very much, as always, for the trust and confidence you place in us. And we wish everybody a very happy end of spring and a great summer coming up. Thank you.